Hey guys, we are back for another Motu Classics review, going back to some older figures, and these are ones that I promised I was going to do a video on in my recent toy haul video. And this video is kind of my way of getting these figures reviewed and getting my opinions out there before the impending release of the Super 7 Filmation Sorceress. So obviously that means we're taking a look at both Sorceress figures from Motu Classics. We've got Temple of Darkness, and then we've got the regular one. So this one was a traveling convention exclusive years back, so at a con in Germany, at PowerCon, and then they were made available elsewhere as well. And then the regular Sorceress was just a figure in the mainline series. Obviously I don't have packaging, I don't keep Motu Classics packaging, so we don't have that to talk about, but standard Motu Classics stuff. So if you know the line, you know what these guys came in. Obviously they've got some accessories we'll talk about as well, but these are some pretty important figures. Well, at least this one is definitely important for sure. So we're going to take a look at both of them, what's similar, what's different, and then we'll check out all the stuff they come with. Alright guys, here are our Sorceress figures, and we're going to do articulation first as normal, but I do have them both out right now because there is something a little bit different about these figures in the sense that they're not 100% the same, despite the fact that this one really does look like a repaint. She's not 100% a repaint. So I'm going to move her aside for just a second, and we're going to focus on the quote-unquote normal Sorceress here. So the head can swivel, but there's not a whole lot of motion. You know, the headdress is going to get in the way, so she basically just looks forward. That's really all you're going to do with her. Arms can go out. The wings are going to follow that. We do have a bicep swivel. There is a single jointed elbow, and then we've got rotation at the wrist. She does have a waist twist. It doesn't do a great deal. She can kick forward. If you get her staff out of the way, she can kick out to the side, so you can do bout splits with her. And then she has a single jointed knee, a boot cut, and then we've got a hinge down at the ankle. So it's pretty standard Motu Classic stuff. I mean, if you know what you're getting into with this line, you kind of know what to expect here. Where she's different between these two is that this one has a thigh cut down here, so you can actually rotate at the thigh, whereas this one's just a straight hinge. So you can't really do a whole lot with it. This isn't going to afford you any great deal of mobility or anything, but it definitely does add a little bit of ease of use factor when it comes to at least posing her around. Now, beyond the fact that they have slightly different articulation, they do differ in other ways as well, and I'm not just talking about the fact that this one's all white and this one is multicolor. So we've got our standard Classics style vintage toys / Filmation look on the left, and then we've got the all white version, and this one gets her look from the Temple of Darkness mini comics. That's where she also gets her name. That came packaged with some figures in the vintage line where she was all white for some reason. There are also a lot of other weird coloring variants in that comic. Tila is wearing the pink armor in that one. I believe Man-at-Arms has a white mustache in that comic, so there's a lot of weird stuff, and I think that comic came out after the show started, so I'm not really sure why she looks like this, but I actually kind of like it, and I like what they did with some of the stuff on the figure. So we're going to talk about the regular Sorceress first, just to get that out of the way, and then we'll compare the two and talk about this one over here. For the regular quote-unquote normal Sorceress, I think this is a great example of a fantastic female figure in the line. Mattel did a pretty good job with a lot of the female figures in the classics. Tila is kind of my gold standard still, but the Sorceress is right up there. She looks fantastic. I really dig the face sculpt. I like the paint work on it. I really like the headdress on this one in particular. It doesn't make her head look too big. It's fitted very nicely, and it's just a cool design. I've always kind of liked the way the Sorceress looked in pretty much any media, so this works out really well. We've got a nice spread of feathers on her tunic and on the helm that kind of get the point across, but don't really go overboard when it comes to too many feathers to make it just, you know, it looks nice and clean without being too cluttered, I suppose. And then all of that has a nice dry brushing of white on there. And then we've got some ruffled boots down there. She does have her pearlescent style staff, which I really like. Works really well. If you've heard in other videos from me, I dig pearlescent plastic. I dig transparent stuff like that, so that works really, really well. All the paintwork on the figure itself is very clean. The only place I have any real issues is on her wings, and then we've got one little splotch right here, which it's on the back, so I don't really care too much. There's a lot of texture, a lot of sculpted detail on these. We'll talk about the mechanics behind them here in a minute, but they look pretty decent. They did make a change because in the show and on the vintage toy, the underside of the wings, the inner part, is solid orange, but here they changed it to blue. I guess just to make it more consistent between the back and the front, or the inside and the outside, however you want to describe it. And I'm okay with it. I think it works really well. I like the saturated blue color. It's different from what's on the plastics on her arms and her chest. so I think it helps stand out a bit. And in general, I'm really happy with the way she looks from just an aesthetic perspective. There are definitely some issues with the wings, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Now for this figure, we do have a few differences, but for the most part, she's very, very similar. Outside of the fact that, like I mentioned, she does have the thigh swivel, the only other real difference is that she has Tila style boots and not the boots that the Sorceress has. These are what she had in the mini comics, so they used a different style boot. Beyond that, though, she has the same staff accessory. There's no difference there. She does, of course, have an all white or slightly white color scheme. There's some gray dry brushing in the boots. The hood is actually gray. It's not white, and she's got purple eyes in the eagle's head up there. And then her wings are honestly my favorite part because they are translucent plastic. And they work really well. It kind of gives them an ethereal ghost type effect, which I really like. And it just works very nicely with this particular figure. It's something different, something that just looks pretty cool. And I'm all for translucent plastic. I just said it a minute ago. And it works really well for me here on a personal level. And I think it's translated very nicely into figure form as well. So let's talk about these wings for a second. I'm not going to use both figures. They do the exact same thing. There's no reason to clutter up the screen with two of them. We're just going to keep it down to the main regular Sorceress. So we have got an interesting design system for these. So we've got one main feather set of feathers that hangs down from the head, and then the others are attached to the back of her arms with these big drums, and each of them has panels on them. So you've got a small wing, a medium-sized wing, and then a larger wing. So when you move her arms out, the wings kind of go with it, almost like it's an action feature. And it looks cool. I mean, this is a classic Sorceress pose. When you do this, I'm really happy with it. Like, I think it works pretty well. I don't have any major gripes when it comes to doing this. What my gripes begin with is the fact that this is ugly. It's just a very ugly design. I don't think it's very pleasing to the eye because you've got these huge things sticking out of her back. It's very odd. Not to mention the fact when you start to move her in other ways, the wings are obviously going to follow you. So you want to get her arm forward? Well, you're probably not going to now. Not to mention the fact that at this point in the game, we know that Castle Grayskull exists. Sorceress can't sit on the chair. You know, she can't sit on the throne in there because of these wings. It's just an odd design. I kind of get what they were going for, and I do believe that the Filmation version that we're getting from Super 7, you know, in the near future, based on the time I'm actually recording this, has a different system to allow you to do different things. I think the wings are removable and some sort of detachable type system. So, you know, hopefully to alleviate some problems in that regard. But this figure, you know, is kind of limited in what you can do because of these wings, because they're, you know, configured in such a certain way, and the mechanics of them only work in a specific way. So, you know, if you want to bring her arms forward, you know, you really can't do that. No one's gonna. You have to really pose her in a very specific way to make it work depending on what you want to do. So for me, you know, at the end of the day, it's not really worth it to go through the hassle to try to get those plates to really work with you. You kind of just want to have her standing there with a staff, or, you know, do the classic Sorceress pose. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, this is still a solid pose. You know, it works very, very well. It's quintessential to her character and what she's seen doing in many different media. But, you know, you can't understate the fact that this is just a wonky, kind of janky design that leaves a lot to be desired. Now, as far as accessories go, we'll talk about that real quick. We've already discussed briefly the staffs. They're just staffs, you know, they're vintage style staff, so nothing too crazy there. Nice pearlescent plastic. But we've got different things for the different figures. So we have got Zor done up in the Sorceress color, so you can see the wings are done up in a kind of a rainbow effect. We've got the armor on the bird. We've got the perch, and, you know, it's kind of standard for the line. We've got a few other birds like this. You know, Tila comes with one. We get one with the Star Sisters. Evil Lyn has Screech. So you've got birds like this. I mean, it's just another one. Another nice bonus little pack-in homage to other aspects of the line. So that's a cool one. And then the Temple of Darkness Sorceress comes with not this, but with this. So in the Castle Grayskull, there is a room so you can house the orb that comes with the second version of King Grayskull, and that would be this thing. I've touched on this previously in a King Grayskull review that I did a ways back. So not the SDCC version, the one that came in the standard Motu Classics packaging, came with this power orb. And then the Temple of Darkness Sorceress came with this stand for it, which honestly I think is pretty sweet. It's got a nice kind of galactic space style paint job on it. There's like an Eternian language that if memory serves me right, was created to be able to write something on this. That could be entirely garbage, but I believe that was the case at one point. And then we've got this nice kind of gemstone style base that's done in a translucent plastic, and the whole thing is translucent, but it's painted to cover it, give it that kind of space theme. So you put King Grayskull's orb on the stand, and then you put the whole deal inside of Castle Grayskull, and you've got this thing in your Castle Grayskull is basically what it comes down to. So it's a nice little bonus thing. So if you've got all the requisite parts, you can make the whole thing and add a little touch of flair, a little sparkly gemstone to your castle. So all things said and done, despite the kind of messy nature of the wings for these figures, I unequivocally like them. They're fantastic figures. They come with a pretty solid spread of accessories, unique accessories at that are uniquely tied to them and the mythos surrounding their character and their role in Motu. I do think that, unfortunately, the wings are the biggest drawback, but these figures are still pretty solid. Like I said, I think they are among the best looking female figures in the line. The regular Sorceress is one of the most sought after on the aftermarket. She is, on the upper echelon in terms of resale value. There are more expensive figures out there, but she is still very pricey. I like all of the accessories that these come with. I like how they tied the Temple of Darkness Sorceress into Castle Grayskull, into King Grayskull, just kind of make them all one cohesive thing. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's a Sorceress. You kind of have to have her. How could you not? She is, central to the Motu mythos. So it's kind of a no-brainer to get her in your collection, even though she is very expensive these days. So that's going to do it for this look at the Masters of the Universe Classic Sorceress and Temple of Darkness Sorceress from Mattel. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And until next time.